Hello, my name is Gwen, and today is Saturday, April the 22nd at about 8 p.m. Tonight, I'm going to look at the difference and similarities between religion, morality, and spirituality. And for our purposes, I want to go ahead and run a few definitions for this discussion. So, the overview of my definition is going to be the divine force, and then we'll jump into religion, spirituality, and morality. So first, let me look at the idea of the divine. The divine is an unseen entity or force that could be either multiple or singular, could be good or evil, could be a god, goddess, or other. And I'll back this up with the divine force, defining that. And I'm looking on a Word document as I do this, so you'll hear me clicking and things in the background. Now, a divine force is an unseen power. This power is usually neutral until it's pushed by your will in a specific direction. An example of will, and I'm using a capital W for will, is prayer, wishes, and or curses. And I'm using capital letters for each of those. Now, the power sources for will are basically strong emotions. And power source for will is joy, and I'm using capital letters for these two: joy, hate, love, belief, rage, anger, sorrow, worship, and all powerful emotions. I just read that off to you. Now, um, oh, sorry about that noise. Human beings have the idea of this concept throughout history, except they say it differently. For example, one thing that we say, we might have ill will towards something or goodwill towards something. Okay? Good or evil will, good will or ill will. That's a concept that's been old in humanity. We have words like that all over the place and worldwide. Ill will, ill will towards somebody. So, what I wrote down here, a note was, be careful what you say or what you curse because words have power. That's why I don't like it when I hear somebody saying a cuss word for something precious, like my, and I don't curse, so like my god darn daughter, except they're saying cuss words, or my damn whatever that is that's precious to them, because they're cussing because they're emphatic in what they're saying, but they're really cursing that precious thing to them, and they shouldn't be because words have power. Now, the divine force is usually a sentient form of life, a form of unseen life. That is, I believe in gods and goddesses and things like that, except I believe in every one of them. And in my mind, if you listen to my religion in general and divine force and Christianity previous recordings, you'll see that I've already discussed that. But basically, these divine forces, I believe in all of them. And so, if you, and my belief is that if you say you believe in any one of them, then you concede the existence of the rest. So if you believe in a Christian God, then you conceded all the rest of the possibility of all the rest of the gods, even though that God says you should not have any before him, but you still conceded the belief in the divine force, so you conceded all of them, whether you want to admit it or not, but you did. um, where am I at? Okay, yeah. How we use this form of life affects human beings. That's going to be our question here. How does this unseen life form affects human beings, and which human beings are affected? And then for our purposes, I'm going to look at how it affects black people. All forms of the occult and metaphysics are a form of discussion of this unseen life force. So human beings have been discussing this in various ways since we began. Even nature, I understand, has a belief in that. If you ever read about the experiments with the bird, how it flaps its wings to make food come down the little chute, and the scientist was looking at how two unrelated events make a third event happen, because flapping the wings had no way of making food come down the chute, but the bird learned that by flapping his wings, the food would come down the chute. So every time he wanted more food, he'd flap his wings. That means they argue, and I agree with them, that that's a belief in an unseen force. And so that to me did substantiate nature understanding unseen force uh, as well. Religion is a sub part of the occult and metaphysics, although they don't think of it that way, but it is a sub part. If you ever look at those old movies about witchcraft and demon worship and stuff like that, it looks very much like a Catholic ceremony. And because they're so closely related. Now we're going to discuss religion first. Religion, and what I got down here is that religion was is a social construct, a specific concept of the divine. It's worldwide. It could be polytheist, monotheist, male, female, other. It does have rules, and if you don't like those rules, then you have a schism. And in the West, Christianity is the predominant religion. For our purposes, we'll look at Christianity and Islam. A social construct, sorry again about the noise, sorry. A social construct is a whatever a group of people decided to do, they formed around this specific religion, and they decided to worship according to those rules. That's all that means. And this is an event that happens worldwide among people. Now, the various kinds of religion is what differ. Like some religions have multiple gods and goddesses, some has one, some has something that's an inanimate object. Sometimes it's male, sometimes it's female, sometimes they're both, sometimes they're neither. Human beings have had some form of religious belief since we began. And for our purposes, we're going to be looking at, like I said, Christianity. Now, about rules and schism, like the Reformation, the Counter Reformation, and the Counter Reformation. Meanwhile, there was Judaism, then Christianity, then Islam, all branches of the same from the same entity that they called a God. So this Christian God started off as a Jewish God, then came a Christian God, and then became an Islamic God in the Islamic branch. I'm told that the word Allah translated as the God or the one true God, but it's the same God. My first things that the Muslim people that I met when they came to America, they were telling me it's the same God, and that was back in the 70s. Might have morphed and changed whatever now, but I was told it was the same God by them. And I do know that according to my religious history class and at the Arab-Israeli conflict, I took a class in that, and the Christian Islam thing. I took that, plus I took African history, and they talk about the spread of Islam through Africa and South Europe. So they mostly talk about how it morphed into three different beings with three different focuses. And I'm saying it wrong by saying three different beings. I'm saying three different subparts and I'm saying it wrong by saying morphed. People chose to look at it three different ways. That's what I mean. Now I'm gonna stop sniffing and pause for a sec. Okay, I'm back. I still got a sniff, but I hope y'all can bear it. Yeah. So that's basically what I mean by religion and Christianity. With rules, like I said, they you have your rules and then you have your schism. That is, if the rules that are made aren't suitable to you, and then you find another group of folk, then you all have a schism. that breaks up from that main branch into another branch. So you got your various branches of Christianity, like your African Methodist, your Protestant, your evangelistic, whatever the heck they call that. A whole bunch of them. All those sub parts. That's what I mean by when the rules don't work, you just have your own schism and such. Now we're going to talk about spirituality. Okay, so religion is man made and a social construct. However, spirituality is a little bit different. This is a relationship between the individual and whatever divine force they decided most represents their belief system. You can't help but go to the divine force that most represents your belief system. It's a symbiotic relationship almost. Um, what it means is that it's going to be a personal relationship between you and the entity alone. It's no middleman. Nobody is going to be telling you what to do. You're going to be doing that because you know it's right, or doing whatever it is because you know that it is in accord with what you believe. So your accountability is going to be to yourself and to the spiritual force that you're looking at. No, excuse me. So you have individual rules, and you're accountable. You there's nobody that you got to report to but yourself, and to that entity that you believe in. Okay. Now we go down to morality, and this is the reason why I'm putting this cast on, is because morality is not limited to religion. It is almost the opposite. Okay? Spiritual people are extremely moral, and they believe it's not that just because you're not religious does not mean that you don't believe in a divine force that's greater than you. It's the opposite again. You believe in a divine force that's vast and strong, and you believe that you are a strong part of it, and it is a part of you. You have divine love, and you love it, and you basically work together. You're accountable to it, and you're accountable to yourself. There are no rules. You have to define those rules, and you follow those rules based on your spirit. These people, that's why I say spiritual people are extremely moral, and I'm gonna read these off to you. They are accountable to their divine force for their behavior and not to man. Spiritual people aren't accountable to other people. We are accountable to laws, but not accountable to other people. Most spiritual people don't even talk to other people about morality. I'd say that this makes a very righteous person. I got that down here. They do right because they want to, not because they believe they will go to hell. I learned a long time ago that I didn't accept that I'm going to go burn somewhere. I believe that I would be with people just like me. And if you are a dastardly person, then that will be a form of hell. But if you're a nice person, that'll be a form of heaven. So if you're wherever you go at, you're going to be going to the same level of people just like you are. That might be a heaven or a hell, depending on what kind of person you are. Now I'm going to tell the story of two drunkards. One got religion and one was spiritual. Now, these two drunkards, me and a close relative, we were both drunkards and silly people, right? And we were out partying. I was out in the Air Force, and this one was this close friend slash relative of mine was still in the hometown, but before this relative got religion, he would barely take care of himself, and religion really helped him because he was in such a state where he was doing drugs, doing alcohol, barely bathed, barely even ate because he was so not interested in doing anything productive for himself. He got religion, and it helped him immensely, and I am so glad because he cleaned himself up. He went to school. He graduated from in a course, got a small business, got a went on and started preaching, got a wonderful job that he loved, got all kind of skill set, so much so that he later on retired, and he's way better off than he ever would have been had he not gotten religion. Unfortunately, he sometimes falls off the wagon by getting drunk every once in a while, but for the most part, he stayed on the path. Now, the spiritual person never did get too far gone, but and I'm the spiritual person. So I did know that I needed to continue to bathe and eat and things like that. But when I decided to quit drinking, I never turned back because I made the decision to quit drinking and I was accountable for me to quit drinking, right? So many religious people might say a lot of things that they want to do and say they're going to do, but they're accountable to other people, okay? Once you are accountable to other people, all you got to do is tell them to believe, tell them whatever appeases them. But once you're accountable to yourself, there's no arguing or lying because you're accountable to you. So the drunkard who was spiritual never went back because she was accountable to herself. The other one falls down every once in a while, but he manages to straighten up. I haven't heard that he fell down anytime recently, but when he was struggling, he did struggle, and and from what I understand, he's okay now. But that's just two different approaches to this sort of thing. The other one is a tale of two schools, and this is what I'm going to use as an example about accountability when you're accountable to someone outside yourself versus accountable to yourself. Now, the school number one was where the students were accountable to themselves, and these are art students. Give me a second here. I'm gonna correct the spelling. Okay, these are art students. When we were in school and college and we had to do art projects, the grade we got was directly proportional to the quality of work we did. And the quality of work was proportional to how much time you put in doing it. So what happened was in this school, if you got to the second or well, I think even at your freshman level, I believe, yeah, even at your freshman level, the teacher will give you the first few introductory courses on that topic, but you made the time to go and do your project. As a result, you didn't have to show up for class. The teachers backed off. The only thing the teacher did was might peruse through the building every once in a while. You might see them, but for the most part, they were just in their office making office hours. Or if they have a specific class to teach, they would teach that or be in the vicinity. But the students who did art projects were all over the building. Matter of fact, when I would have my classes, all of my classes were at the same time at the same hours. That is, I would have four classes on the same day according to my schedule. Would be on the same days and at the same hours, like 1 to 2 or whatever afternoon it is, and they all be on the same day. Or 3 hours on Tuesday at two from 2 to 5, or yeah, or 1 to 5, whatever. But they be on the same hours at the same time, and each uh, semester, I'd have to get it signed off for an override so that the scheduler can put it in the system as such. So we'd have a written schedule thingy where we would put down our classes that we want to take, and since they were all at the same time and on the same days, they'd have to have a override. Somebody to sign off to override the system so that my scheduled classes would be as such. But nobody cared, none of these teachers cared which class I actually went to because they knew that we as students will be in that building all day. And we were. The students, when you walk through the building, you'll see students all over the building working on their projects, staying on schedule, building this, hammering that, sculpturing this, pouring bronze, getting ready to pour bronze, making their molds, doing all kind of things that they have to do to get their projects ready by the time it needed to be critiqued. As a result, students worked 8 12-hour days. You might have an 18-hour day as a student when your class is actually scheduled for 3 hours or at the most 6 hours at week. And you would have a 8-hour work day technically if you did all your classes at separate times. It'll mostly be an 8 to 6 hour work day. We didn't have 8 to 6 hour work days. We had 12 and 14-hour work days. Sometimes we stayed all night trying to get our project ready because we wanted our project to be good. Our teachers didn't hold us accountable. We had to show up and be critiqued on results. Excuse me. Our teachers didn't care whether we didn't care whether we showed up or not or whatever we did. We just had to have our stuff ready, and we knew that and they knew that. So our teachers didn't tell us anything, didn't take attendance, didn't do nothing except tell us what we needed to do, what our project was. We had to hunt them, we'd find them and hunt them down if we had a question specifically. But for the most part, we knew the question, we knew the answer to the question. I knew who else to ask, who was around. The building was full of students all day, late into the evening, early in the morning. That's when you're accountable to yourself. Now, the other school is where you're accountable to teachers. The teachers did care what your schedule was and all of that. So the students showed up, they took their specific class at their specific hours and left. They didn't do nothing outside of class. There were no 12-hour days there. They had 3 hours here and 3 hours there, or an hour here and an hour there. That's all they committed. That's all they put in. There was no override about the schedule thing. The teachers wanted you to be where you're supposed to be at on the schedule. And as a result, there was no extra time spent. The students did not spend extra time. They spent minimal time, if that. The projects were less substantial. Projects weren't nearly as nice because the students only were accountable to the teacher. The teacher is what gave them their parameters. Unfortunately, when you have parameters, they're limited to how much the other guys can offer. So the kids only did their minimum, and that's what they did. That's a tale of two schools. One, you're accountable to yourself, the other one, you're accountable to other people. So it is with religion. You're accountable to the preacher and the other people there. You're not accountable to yourself. So you get a substandard person. And I said it, yeah, a substandard person. What I'm looking at is this. Most of the crimes in America are committed by Christians. That's because most people in America are Christians, but being a Christian don't stop you from committing crimes. Most of the murders are committed by Christians. Being a Christian don't stop you from being a murderer or rapist or thief or any other criminal action. Most of the people in jail who are guilty are Christians because it don't stop you from doing all of those crimes. I'm saying that if these people that do all this stuff, they believe they got that get out of jail free card that I think it was Constantine or Charlemagne or one of those horrible beasts, Charles, that confessed on his deathbed, not confessed, but asked for forgiveness on his deathbed and got it. But meanwhile, where he lived like a barbarian horror show thing. Okay, spiritual people know that that's out of balance, and they know that that's out of balance compared to what you put out, and that karma is out of balance. So spiritual people would not do a lot of stuff and then expect not to have to pay for it. Christians do because of the get out of jail free card that they can play where they ask for forgiveness and then get forgiveness. Spiritual people don't believe that you're going to get uh, forgiveness unless you did the rules, which is in addition to asking for forgiveness. You can ask for it, but in fact, You don't need forgiveness if you do your part, which is to try to make it right. No, I'm sorry, make it right. Be truly repentant and don't do it again. And don't do anything like that again. You never get the same scenario twice. So, by not doing it again, I mean not doing anything like that again in that scenario or again in similar scenarios. Like if you were texting and hit a deer on the road, and you know in your heart that had you not been texting, you probably would have avoided that creature. That wasn't right. So, what you have to do is be truly repentant, try to make it right, and not do it again. So, in this context, not doing it right, I mean, not doing it again means that you would never text again while you were driving, not where you would avoid hitting a deer, but avoid hitting anything. That's by trying not to do it again. Making it right is a biggie because sometimes you can't make it right with the same person, but you can do something similar. Like if this person hit a deer, since he or she cannot make the deer come back to life or take away the pain and the imbalance of karma, what they can do is donate to a wildlife refuge, donate to a deer refuge, or something like that. And they got to donate to the point of pain. It's where it hurts them, but not kills them. You know, where it hurts you, you got to come up with your own figure in your mind. If you steal something and you can't give it back to the little old lady that you stole it from, you can give it to their descendants. If they don't have descendants or you've gone away and can't find them, you can give it to charity. But you can't just give back the amount that you stole. You've got to give that back in real dollars, that is inflated dollars, times three. You got to do it three times as much as your penance and as making it and writing the balance, and then you got to do a penance. That's how that works. People who are spiritual know that everything they do is going to be affected by their balance. So they try not to do a lot of bad stuff because they know they got to be accountable for it, and they're accountable to themselves and to their divine force of choice. That's why they are spiritual people are more righteous because they know that they can't get out of karma. Now with people nowadays, and I want to call us a new black people, the ones that are non-Christian, and non-Islamic, the new black people, I would like for us to go ahead and start singing and praising and giving our divine force of choice our energy so that it can be stronger. I'd also like for us to start doing what we need to do to make ourselves better off, and that is sending out good and powerful prayers and wishes to each other. That's going to be the end of this one. I only wanted to make this about 30 minutes long, and I'm going to come back and talk about what we can do now as black people in relation to this. Okay, because right now we're not doing this kind of things we need to. And like for example, we're wanting this something for nothing thing. That's out of balance. Among the things I'm talking about is like all the people that are on social media and it's free, but we got a black one who's begging for money, and we know that we're using that, and we know that we need to pay that, and we should. So pay our way because we owe it and we're getting something of value for it. Pay it. All debts need to be paid. All wrongs need to be righted among us. We shouldn't try to take from each other. I really think one of the biggest plagues on the black community right now are people who want something for nothing. And that's thieves and robbers, plus the people who want to free this and free that and won't look out for their own self. Okay, those are plagues. Those are people who are out of balance, and they need to work on that. And we can. In fact, if we do things right, we can have racism ended in 90 days, 60 to 90 days. This is a will that we're leaving here right now. We're willing, we're letting this happen. We don't, it don't have to happen. We can fix that. easy. I mean, not easy, but if we were united, we could fix that in about 60 to 90 days. White supremacy would not have an effect on us. Okay. All right then. I'm out of this one. This is exactly 30 minutes. Bye bye.